Good morning all. Firstly, I'd like to, for those of you who've not been here before and for those of you who are coming back, I'd like to welcome you back to Barclays for another Economics of Identity event. And I'd like to thank our fellow co-sponsors Experian and LexisNexis. And without their generous contributions, we would not be able to host an event like today. So I've been asked to give some reflections on a year. And I wasn't really sure whether my presentation would be one that was half glass full or half glass empty. And for those of you who have seen me present at events like this today, events like this, or speak more generally, I'm not usually find difficult in expressing my opinion, but I find myself at an inflection point. So perhaps I would start with some data. Oh, wrong way around. Here we go. So I thought I'd start with some data. In 2015, the OEX published a reasonable 13 papers. In 2016, a bumpy year. We published 27 papers. 2016 was also the year that all the procurement 2 verified providers went live. We went live on the 2nd of March. It was an auspicious day for Barclays. And 2017, still a respectable 15 papers. And this year, 8 papers. What's going on? Now, in all statistical analysis, I think it's important to identify any anomalies in the data. So in 2016, I would like to highlight what I've described as the Rennie effect. Now, what is the Rennie effect, you might ask? No, it's not something you take after dinner, after a big meal. It's David Rennie. Now, I'm not sure if he's in the room yet. I know he's going to attend. But when David Rennie worked for GDS, I like to think that he sat on the OAX board. He was a bit of a one-man white paper machine. He was extraordinary. Now, it's not that he was the only man writing white papers for the OAX. He did have a fantastic team with him at GDS, people like Livia Ralph, who's still fighting the good fight today. And the work that they did and the people they worked with back in 2016, all the papers that were produced are foundational in some of the work we're still doing today. Projects like the pensions dashboard, and the ABI are still working on that today. Projects like creating a digital identity in Jersey. How to create digital identities that can support consumer service savings, but more on this later. So back to 2018. Whilst it's been a quiet year and only 6 papers, 4 of those have been related to blockchains and distributed ledgers. So perhaps if this tells us something, maybe the future is distributed. Only time will tell. If we're not doing lots of projects through the OAX, perhaps the time for white papers is over. Perhaps it's about organisations who are now moving into the real world and doing real-world implementations. So, some more information. All these stories I'm going to tell now about all OAX members doing real-world projects. States of Jersey is a member of ours, and they announced this year, in March 2018, that they have chosen Yoti as their partner for building an identity scheme. Yoti. Oh, my Lord. They are like one organisation. They're going to single-handedly build the identity market in the UK. Looking at their website, they have made these announcements this year. In addition to their Jersey project, they have built a partnership with Deltic, the nightclub provider, a pop-up, the Jägermeister, a new ID card for young people, and a pilot with Heathrow airports. Evernham. Now, I don't think any conversation about the rise of self-sovereign and can pass without Evernham, who Gartner listed as one of the 3 cool vendors in blockchain technology, have a number of projects and pilots with various organisations around the world. Now, for me, I think there are some real questions about whether customers actually want to take control of their data, about how to build compelling customer propositions, and what the commercial models might look like. But if anybody can solve these problems, I'm sure that these guys can. our event last year was very much focused on open banking, and certainly things in this space are really hotting up. At last publication in September, there are 77 regulated entities who have registered to provide services, and I can't help but put in a little plug for Barclays, who became the first of the CMA 9 to launch the full suite of APIs to enable customers to aggregate their data. Now, I think we're yet to see what the full customer proposition is and where customer value will be, but it is really early days yet. The Scottish Government. The Scottish Government are moving from the discovery phase to the alpha phase of their project for delivering digital identity in Scotland, but they have identified there needs to be different approaches for creating digital identity for different use cases, something we will watch with bated interest down south. And finally, TISA. Now, TISA have been one of our most persistent members of the Open Identity Exchange. When I first started at Barclays 4 years ago, they published a paper highlighting the need to enable a better savings journey and how a digital identity could support that journey. Now they are consulting what they think is the right level of assurance for digital identity, and they want to move to a pilot for building prototypes and developing a trust framework, a very ambitious program, and I do wish them the best of luck. Now, while this is only a small sample of all that's happening in the identity market in the UK and with our members, it does represent a vibrancy of activity across the marketplace. And then there were 5. Well, a year in review cannot pass on a market or come past without any comment on Verify. And to be honest, of all the slides, this was the hardest for me to write. Barclays, as most people know, has been a passionate provider and supporter of Verify since we signed on the dotted line back in 2015. Now, we joined Verify back then because we believed that customers should have a safe way to sign on to digital services multiple times with one identity. But now I often go into rooms where there are more critics of Verify than there are supporters, and I can certainly understand why. Verify has not achieved its ambitions, and there are certainly difficulties with that program. I'm the first to admit that. So why did we stay? It's a good question, and it's one we've had to think long and hard about. And we certainly didn't stay because of the significant return on investment. But we do need strong government support and engagement on whatever comes next. And we decided that we'd rather be at the table with government, helping them shape that solution. And we still believe that offering our customers a secure way to share their data with organisations they choose to is the right thing to do. So what does this all mean? So am I half glass full or am I half glass empty? Well, as most people know, I do stand on the side of the realism, but I am quite optimistic with all this activity taking place. But there are some questions that need to be answered. With all these disparate solutions, are we truly putting customers at the heart of what we are doing, or are we too focused on technology? And I know it's controversial for me to say this in a room of digital identity experts, but if we more focused on the customer need and less on standards, would we achieve more? And from all the activity that we are seeing, is there one program that's going to rise to the top to beat all others? And as I said before, there's no scheme anywhere in the world that has worked without government leadership. And I realise that we're in a very difficult political environment, but hopefully in 2019, we will see the coordinated leadership that we need. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Jess and Andrew have to say later. I'm hoping that we will see significant progress in 2019, and I'm certainly looking forward to what comes next. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day, and thank you very much.